Everything we have discussed so far comes down to one shift: execution versus strategy. Most engineers spend their careers mastering execution. They are trained to solve problems quickly, finish the ticket, fix the production issue, close the sprint. And these are incredibly valuable skills. But as you move into leadership, your value changes. You are no longer valued for the work you do. You are valued for the quality of decisions you influence. Strategic leaders don't chase work, they create impact. Now that we have understood the mindset, let's make this practical. Here's the checklist that you can start implementing from very next project. Whenever you're involved in an important discussion, whether it's a sprint planning, architecture review, design discussion, or a stakeholder meeting, pause for just 60 seconds and ask yourself these four questions. First question: which business goal does this support? If you can't answer this question, probably you're solving the wrong problem. The technology has value only when it supports a business objective. That's where strategic thinking begins. Not with what technology should be used or not with how quickly can we build this, but it start with which business objective does it support. Imagine your team is asked to build a new feature and the immediate reaction would be, okay, let's understand the requirements. That's execution. But a strategic leader asks one question before that: which company goal does this support? Maybe the company wants customer retention. Maybe the company wants to increase the revenue. Maybe the company wants to reduce the support costs. Or the company's priority is reliability. Or the company's goal is to enter a new market. The answer matters because same technical problem can look completely different depending on the company's goal. For example, let's say your team is working on improving an application. If the company's biggest goal is growth, you might optimize for speed. If the company's biggest goal is cost reduction, you might optimize for efficiency. If the company's biggest goal is customer trust, you might optimize for reliability. Same team, different business goal, different decision. And this is where most tech leads get stuck. They are very good at solving the problems that were given to them, but they don't ask the question whether they are solving the problem that matters the most. So, from your next project, start asking which business goal does this support? If you can't answer this question properly, then you might need more context before moving forward. Second, what trade offs am I making? Remember, every decision involves a cost. Great leaders don't hide those costs, they communicate them. For example, let's say you decide to ship faster. Great, but what are you giving up? Testing, performance, maintainability, technical depth. Okay, let's take one more example. Let's say you decide to choose a highly flexible architecture. Great. What are you giving up? Simplicity, ease of maintenance, speed of implementation. Every decision gives you something and it takes away something. Strategic leaders makes them visible. Here's the simple sentence you can start using immediately. By choosing this option, we are gaining so and so, but we are giving up so and so. That's it. Simple, but incredibly powerful because you are not presenting a solution as if it's perfect. You are presenting a decision with awareness, and that creates trust. Third, what risks am I ignoring? If this decision fails, why might this fail? What assumptions am I making today that could be tomorrow's problems? This question might be uncomfortable, and that's exactly why this is important. Because when we like a solution, we naturally focus on why it would work. But strategic thinkers force themselves to ask, why might this fail? Let's say your team planned a migration. Everyone is excited. The new architecture looks better, the technology is modern, and the timeline looks reasonable. Now, pause for a second. What could go wrong? Could there be a downtime? Could performance suffer? Could customers be affected? Could another team be dependent on something that isn't ready yet? Could adoption be lower than expected? You don't need to predict every possible problem, but you should identify the biggest ones. And once you have identified the risk, think about the mitigation. What will you do to reduce it? And then think about the alternative. What happens if the original plan doesn't work? This is what separates optimism from preparedness. Leadership does not require you to predict the future, it requires you to think ahead. And finally, what's the highest impact alternative? This might be my favorite question in the entire presentation because sometimes the answer isn't improving the current solution. Sometimes the answer might be completely different. Imagine your team is discussing from 2 months on improving a complicated feature. You have multiple technical options, you have designs, you have estimates. Everyone is debating on implementation. But suddenly someone asks, what's the highest impact alternative? Maybe we don't need to improve the feature at all. Maybe the customers do not use it enough. Maybe the real problem is somewhere else. Maybe removing the complexity adds more value rather than improving the technology. Maybe 80% of the solution is done by smaller change. Strategic thinking gives you permission to step back, to question the direction, not just the implementation. And that's the powerful leadership habit because it's not always how should we do this. Sometimes it can also be should we be doing this at all? I personally recommend writing these 4 questions on a sticky note and keep them next to your monitor. Before every important technical discussion, review them. And within few weeks, you will notice something interesting. You will start asking better questions. You will contribute differently in the meetings. And people start inviting you to earlier conversations. And they see you like a leader. This brings us to the most important message in entire strategic thinking series. Stop being known as a person who executes. Start being known as a person who shapes the direction. Think of your reputation at work. When an important project comes up, what do people think of you? Do they think, give it to them, they will get it done? That's valuable. Execution matters. But as your career grows, you want people to think differently. You want them to say, let's get his perspective before we decide. That's completely different level of influence. The first person is trusted to deliver, and the second person is trusted to shape the direction. And this transition from execution to leadership, it doesn't mean you stop being technical. It doesn't mean you stop delivering. It means you add another layer to your value. You start connecting technology to business goals. You start making trade offs visible. You start identifying the risks. You start challenging the assumptions. And most probably, you start influencing the decisions even before the execution begins. And that's when people see you as a person more than the one who executes tasks. And for tech leads and engineering managers, this is one of the most important transitions that they can make. If you are a tech lead or an engineering manager and you feel like you're technically capable and you deliver good work, but you are still struggling to be seen as a strategic leader, this is exactly where I help people work on. In a one-on-one authority session, we look into where you're exactly stuck. Maybe you're stuck in the execution mode. Maybe you're struggling to communicate your ideas to senior leadership. Maybe you're making good decisions but not able to influence the room. Maybe you know you're capable of more, but you're not sure what needs to be changed. Together, we can identify what's keeping you where you are and build a clearer roadmap for stronger leadership, strategic thinking, and executive presence. If that sounds like something you need, you can book a one on one authority session through my website. The link is in the description below. If you have enjoyed the strategic thinking tear down, subscribe to my channel. Here, I share practical breakdowns on communication, leadership, strategic thinking, executive presence, and career growth for tech professionals. My goal is simple to help tech professionals transition from great executors to becoming confident and influential leaders. Before you leave, I want you to answer this in the comments. What's the hardest part for you right now? Is it connecting your work to business goals, communicating the trade offs, identifying the risks, or identifying the highest impact alternative? I would genuinely like to know. Comment below. Thank you for watching. And remember, always don't ask, what should I do next? Always ask, what creates the most impact next? I'll see you in the next video.